So now we'll be starting the discussion of international relations for the month of May. Okay, so as we are in the starting months, definitely the articles will be more. Once we'll go to the subsequent months, the number of articles and the discussion part will be less, because most of the times the articles and the discussion parts and the issues will get repeated. Okay, so as part of it, so we'll be seeing almost 20 articles from the month of May with respect to international relations, so quite a heavy number. Okay, so let's see all of them one by one in detail. Okay, yeah. So the first article is India's suspension of the Indus Water Treaty. So as a part of retaliatory measure that the India has taken post Pahalgam attack, we have taken a step to suspend the Indus Water Treaty. You all know it. Okay, you might have seen it in the news, right? So as part of a retaliatory measure, we have done it. Okay, so basically India has suspended Indus Water Treaty in response to the Pakistan-sponsored terrorism. So we want to pressurize Pakistan to end the state-sponsored terrorism. So this is the reason why we have suspended, and India is using IWT, that is Indus Water Treaty, as a tool to suspend it. Okay, tool to put pressure on the Pakistan to end the state-sponsored terrorism. So we know the Pahalgam attack has taken place in the Jammu and Kashmir, where 26 Indian tourists were killed by a group named TRF. So TRF is nothing but the resistant force. Okay, this is a terrorist organization which was responsible for the Pahalgam attack. So this TRF has direct connections with the JEM. Okay, this is a subsidiary of the Jaish-e-Mohammed group, which is a terrorist organization, and these groups are funded by Pakistan. Okay, they are supporting the terror funding. So that's why we are calling this particular activity as a state-sponsored terrorism. So this is sponsored by the state, that is Pakistan. So we want to pressurize Pakistan to end the state-sponsored terrorism. So that's why we have taken a step to suspend the Indus Water Treaty, where we are using Indus Water Treaty as a tool to pressurize the Pakistan. Okay, so we need to know some basics with respect to the Indus Water Treaty before discussing all the other important aspects of this article. Okay, basically Indus Water Treaty was mediated by World Bank in the year 1960. Okay, we have signed it officially on September 19 of 1960. So this was mediated and brokered by World Bank. Okay, the two parties involved are Pakistan and India. Okay, so the basic decision on which the World Bank has brokered is with respect to the usage of Indus waters. Okay, basically in the Indus water, we can divide the Indus waters into two parts, the western rivers and the eastern rivers. What are the western rivers? Western rivers are the Indus, Jhelum, okay, and Chenab. Okay, basically you can remember it as ICJ. Indus, Chenab and Jhelum. Eastern parts or eastern rivers consists of Ravi, Beas and Sutlej. So whatever the western rivers are there, we have given the usage of the western rivers to the Pakistan. Whatever the eastern rivers that are there, we have given the usage of the eastern rivers to India. However, the western rivers, in the western rivers or in the western part, okay, in the usage of ICJ, we have few rights. Okay, for example, we can do some kind of agriculture activity. We can come up with the hydroelectric projects. But whenever we are coming up with the projects, or whenever we are developing certain projects of hydroelectricity, so whatever the designs that we are using, okay, we need to inform Pakistan beforehand, so that it will tell the objections. If there is any objections with respect to its decision, definitely with respect to our decision, definitely need to tell the things. Okay, it need to challenge the designs basically. Okay, basing upon the Pakistan decision only we need to follow. Okay, so through that particular means, the western parts, okay, the western rivers on the Indus, on the river Indus, on the river Jhelum and on the Chenab, we can come up with the hydroelectric projects. Okay, so this is the one provision that we have come up with. But if there is any disputes with respect to Indus Water Treaty, or if there is any dispute with respect to the implementation of the Indus Water Treaty, there is a adjudication mechanism that was framed in the Indus Water Treaty. So this dispute redressal mechanism will be held in three parts. Okay, basically this will be a three-tiered mechanism. So the first part consists of Permanent Indus Commission. So as part of the Indus Water Treaty, we have formed the Permanent Indus Commission. As part of the Permanent Indus Commission, so the members of the Permanent Indus Commission are the members from both the countries. The representatives of both the countries will be part of Permanent Indus Commission. So if there is an issue, they'll need to solve by themselves. So still if they are not able to conclude or if they are not able to arrive any decision, they need to go to the second step, that is formation of the neutral expert. Who will form the neutral expert? It is World Bank's duty to form the neutral expert to solve this particular issue. If they are not able to derive any solution, then they can go to court of arbitration. So this is a 3-tier mechanism that was mentioned as part of the Indus Water Treaty. I hope you have understood till here. So these are the basic tenets of the Indus Water Treaty. And if you look at the global agreements also, so there are like with respect to water sharing and all, globally between many nations, there are more than 400 agreements that are there. Okay, so out of which there are few important agreements that might be helpful for our exam. Okay, so first one is Helsinki rules. Okay, Helsinki or Helsinki rules. Okay, whatever the pronunciation it may be. Helsinki rules were like framed in the year 1966. Basically, these rules will regulate how rivers needed to be shared between both the countries, how they need to be used. It also includes certain provisions with respect to how tribunals need to be formed. Okay, when we need to go to ICJ. Okay, how arbitration mechanism works with respect to river water sharing. Okay, disputes. So these kind of rules and regulations are there as part of Helsinki rules. Okay, and there is a Helsinki Convention also. This was in the 1992 that we have come up with the Helsinki Convention. So this particular convention provides a legal framework. So this provides a legal framework of how we can prevent and control the water pollution. So across the border, water pollution is an issue. So how to control the water pollution is mentioned in the Helsinki Convention 1992. So basically this requires parties to apply the principle called as precautionary principle. Okay, parties, whoever are there, whoever are involved in the like rivers. For example, if you take the case of Indus, definitely the parties involved are Pakistan and India. So they need to take care in the borders. Okay, if the rivers are in the borders, definitely they need to take care that pollution activity is less with respect to the water. Okay, near to the water, pollution activity needed to be less. Okay, industries needed to be located away, or certain kind of measures needed to be taken so that pollution will be controlled over that. Okay, that is mentioned as part of Helsinki Convention of 1992. And there are certain other rules also, other conventions also. For example, we have UN Convention on the law of non-navigational uses for international water courses, which is not very important for the exam point of view. So we have bought it in the 1997. This also provides some global legal framework. This also establishes some basic rules, basic standards for cooperation between the countries, okay, with respect to water usage. Okay, so these are certain kind of mechanisms that the countries follow as part of these Helsinki rules only. So India also has come up with something called as Indus Water Treaty. Okay, so in this particular Indus Water Treaty, we have come up with certain provisions for the dispute redressal mechanism also. But now we are using this Indus Water Treaty as a tool to suspend the as a tool to actually stop the or pressurize the Pakistan with respect to state sponsored terrorism. Okay, so why did India do that? As I've already told you, post the Pahalgam attack, we have taken this particular decision and we want to put pressure on the Pakistan with respect to it. And we know in the western part, okay, we know as part of Indus Water Treaty, the western rivers like ICJ, that is Indus, Chenab and Jhelum, these are the rivers that we have given. Okay, the rights over these particular rivers are given to the Pakistan, and Pakistan's hydroelectric projects and Pakistan agriculture is dependent on it. For example, the heartland of agriculture of Pakistan, that is Punjab province and Sindh province, are majorly depending on the Indus waters and the western rivers of the Indus. Okay, by suspending this particular treaty, definitely their economy is going to get disturbed. Okay, so but still we have suspended this particular international law. It's okay, but there are certain legal challenges that India faces with respect to this decision. Why? Because in Indus Water Treaty there is no provision, there is no provision or there is no feature which is telling about the termination or the suspension of treaty. There is no provision or there is no feature which involved how to suspend or when to terminate the treaty. There are no clear guidelines that are mentioned with respect to suspension of the treaty. Still we have suspended. So definitely, as we have suspended this particular treaty, this violates the Indus Water Treaty itself. Okay, so in the Indus Water Treaty, there is a special mention of Article 12 Clause 4. This specifies that the treaty shall continue unless a duly ratified treaty for termination is concluded. So basically, Pakistan also needed to give its opinion if we want to suspend the treaty. So this is the article which mentions about it. So we are violating the IWT Article 12. Okay. So next, one more thing is that what did India say? Like, based on which particular law we have suspended this particular treaty? So we have mentioned the Vienna Convention on the Law of Treaties. Okay, so we actually, based on this particular treaty, that is Vienna Convention on Law of Treaties, India is telling that we formally exited that particular treaty, or we formally suspended that particular treaty. But the main problem is we are not part of VCLT. Okay, we did not sign the VCLT. So which particular provision of VCLT tells it? Article 62 of VCLT speaks about the treaty modification, or if there is any international treaty, how treaty needed to be modified, how treaty needed to be terminated. Okay, so these are all the kind of stuff that are mentioned in VCLT as part of Article 62 of VCLT. These are all conditions that are mentioned. But the problem over here is India is not a party of VCLT, but still India is using VCLT to suspend Indus Water Treaty. And even Pakistan did not ratify this VCLT. Even though it signed, it did not ratify it. Okay, so definitely this is not a proper justification from the Indian side. And another one is, whatever the decision that India has taken, this is a violation of international legal norms, because unilateral suspension of IWT without the mutual consent from the Pakistan side will be a violation of the customary international law. So whenever we are coming up with the international laws, there are different principles that guides the international law, which member countries need to follow. One such a principle that we need to follow is pacta sunt servanda, which means that agreements when signed, they must be kept unless a mutual decision is taken. So therefore we can say that we have violated the principle of pacta sunt servanda also. And basing upon our decision, definitely Pakistan may go to ICJ. Okay, it can go to UNSC, it can raise this particular issue in ICJ, it can raise this particular issue in Permanent Court of Arbitration. So we will face these kind of legal challenges in the international forums. So these are the legal implications that India is facing with respect to the suspension or the decision that we have taken. Okay, but how Pakistan will be affected? As I've already told you, so Pakistan's Punjab province and Sindh provinces are the basically the heartlands of agriculture, and they are mostly depend on the western rivers. Okay, they are mostly dependent on the western rivers. This is something which I've already told you. Okay, but already before the suspension of Indus Water Treaty only, there are a lot of interprovincial water conflicts that are there in the Pakistan within the different provinces. Okay, Pakistan is made up of different provinces, and between the provinces also there are a lot of issues. So in the same way, in India we'll have inter-water disputes, right? Interstate water disputes. In the same way, inter-provinces disputes are there. So by suspending this particular treaty, definitely the areas like Punjab and Sindh will get affected, and these kind of disputes may rise. So this is the first impact that the Pakistan faces. Second thing is, this will lead to political instability. Definitely by suspending Indus Water Treaty, that will impact their agriculture. So this agricultural income will decrease. Because of that, the economy of Pakistan may get disturbed. Because of it, it will lead to political instability. Okay, so these kind of problems will be faced by the Pakistan. Okay. So there are already, as part of the western rivers, India has already come up with certain hydroelectric projects, because we know we have certain kind of limited rights with respect to western rivers also, like we can come up with the agriculture usage of that particular western rivers, and we can come up with the hydroelectric projects as part of that limited rights only. So we have come up with the hydroelectric projects. For example, so we have come up with Kishanganga hydroelectric project, Rattle Dam. Okay, we have utilized the western rivers for the power generation and hydroelectric projects, and we have come up with certain dams also, Baglihar Dam, Salal Dam. Okay, and we have come up with certain infrastructure and irrigation for the purpose of irrigation and for the purpose of flood control. We have come up with certain kind of infrastructure. We have developed an infrastructure called as Srinagar Flood Control Project. This is done in order to control the floods. Okay, in order to enhance the irrigation process. Okay, so we have done all of them legally only, because Indus Water Treaty itself says we can come up with the hydroelectric projects, irrigation and flood control measures can be taken, and we can come up with few dams also. Okay, So what are the regional diplomatic consequences that India might face because of the decision that we have taken? Definitely, the relation of India with respect to Pakistan will get more strained because of the suspension of the treaty. It will worsen more, okay, particularly over the water access. Pakistan may raise the issue in UNSC, ICJ and other forums. And it will also impact India-China relations also, we know. So with respect to Indus Water Treaty, India might be an upper riparian state and we might be in an advantaged position. But with respect to another river, okay, that is Brahmaputra river, India is a lower riparian country and Brahmaputra is also very important for the northeastern region of India. So if we are doing this particular thing with the Pakistan, in the same way China can do with respect to India. China can also suspend that particular treaties that we have come up with. So China can develop hydroelectric projects over Brahmaputra, which actually puts India in pressure. Okay, mainly the northeastern part of India will be in dangerous position. For example, in the past also China has taken several decisions. In 2017, when Doklam crisis has taken place, China did not share any hydro data with India due to the Doklam crisis, but it had shared the hydro data to the Bangladesh. Okay, it did not share it with India, but it shared with Bangladesh. Okay. How it will influence the India-Bangladesh ties then? Okay, whatever the decision that we have taken with respect to Indus Water Treaty, this will definitely affect the India-Bangladesh ties also. So, how we have come up with the IWT with respect to Pakistan? In the same way, we have come up with Indus-Ganga Water Treaty. I'm sorry, not Indus. It is Ganga Water Treaty. We have signed it with the Pakistan, like Bangladesh. I'm sorry, Ganga Water Treaty is with respect to Bangladesh. And the term of this Ganga Water Treaty is going to end in 2026. So if we are taking the decision of suspending IWT, so Bangladesh may raise concerns with respect to Ganga Water Treaty also. Okay. So whenever we are renegotiating of the with respect to provisions of Ganga Water Treaty, definitely Bangladesh may raise about the issues of Indus Water Treaty also. In this way, the relation between India and Bangladesh will also get strained. So what kind of steps that India need to take to tackle all this issue? We need to diplomatically handle the issue by having dialogues with Pakistan, China, Bangladesh to mitigate the tensions with respect to water sharing agreements. Okay, and we need to strengthen our water infrastructure. So India must invest in enhancing the water storage capacity. We need to invest in infrastructure with respect to flood control measures. Okay, so we need to reduce reliance on the fluctuating water flows and we need to come up with the storage measures. So through that we can tackle these issues, right? I hope you have understood till here. So once you read this particular thing, like once we complete the video discussion, definitely whoever purchases this particular PDF, okay, this is only for 50 rupees, okay, not this PDF, but monthly PDFs are only for 50 rupees. If you want to purchase, definitely the Telegram channel link will be provided, the mail ID will be provided, and the Instagram link will be provided. You can contact us through Instagram, you can mail us, okay, whatever the possible means you have, okay, whatever the possible resources that you have, in that way you can contact us. Okay, by contacting us, definitely you can purchase. For example, if you want to purchase all the PDFs of May month, all the PDFs of May month are just for ₹50. Okay, so this can act as a one-stop solution for your prelims and mains. You can see how comprehensively we have discussed Indus Water Treaty. So mainly for mains also, these discussions are going to be a very beneficial one. Even by attending the classes regularly, your mindset will get changed, your ideas on topics, your analysis on topics will change. Definitely that will help in the personality test stage also. Okay, these are going to help for the prelims, for the mains and for the personality test. And for the prelims, we are going to give you a handout that will be hardly 20 to 30 pages per month. Okay, as part of this total PDFs only, we'll try to give this particular prelims part where only facts will be there so that you can repeatedly revise. Okay, as this PDFs through which we are discussing, okay, these PDFs are lengthier ones because this contains mains fodder, this will contain this memory retention techniques like test your take. Okay, this contains frameworks also which are useful for the mains. Okay, that is the reason these PDFs are a bit lengthy. Okay, but you need to revise it before prelims, or if you want to revise the facts regularly so that you can retain the information for the longer period of time, definitely you can get access of the PDF by just investing ₹50 per month. Okay. So once you get the access of the PDF after purchasing, definitely you can reread the article, okay, so that you can revise after the video also. You can revise it once and try to attempt these questions that we give after every topic, okay. After every topic we'll be providing these particular questions. And also one more important thing that we are coming up with is MCQs. MCQs will be daily posted in our Telegram, so please make sure you subscribe our Telegram channel also. There will be posting MCQs in the form of quiz, in the form of polls. You need to attempt them, okay. First step is to watch the videos. Second step is to buy the PDF and read the content and solve the test your take part, and join our Telegram and attempt the daily polls. So in this way you will be holistically covering the current affairs, okay. So now let us go to the article number 2. So article number 2 is basing upon the China's relation with the ASEAN countries and China's relation with the Asia mostly, okay. So in the month of May, okay, what happened is in the month of April and May, so the president of China has visited the area of Asia, okay. Mainly they have visited Cambodia, Vietnam and other places, okay. This is because this is given in the news because, or this is given in the article because the article is mostly focusing on the relation between America and China and how this strained relation between both the countries has led to the more thick relation of China with the Asian nations. I'll repeat it again. Recently what happened is US, that is in the Trump administration, has imposed almost 145% tariffs on the Chinese goods. So what China thought is, we need to diversify our trade so that even if America is imposing 145% tariffs, we will not be impacted. So as a part of it, as a retaliatory steps that the China has taken, as part of it only, it has tried to enhance the relation with the Asian countries. As part of it only, recently the president of China has visited the Asian nations. So that's why it was in the news. And how it is related to the UPSC then? How the China and USA policies will have a direct question or an indirect question in UPSC. So in international relations of GS2, there is a topic called whatever the policies that takes place in the developed and developing nations that will have some kind of impact in India. So if it is not impacting India, there is no use of us for reading that particular topic. So if it is impacting India, definitely we need to read it, okay. As the China's relation with the ASEAN countries or Asia countries increases, definitely it will impact India. Definitely it will have an impact on India. That's the reason we are reading this particular topic, okay. So why did the president of China, Xi Jinping, went to a Southeast Asian tour? First one is to counter US economic pressure. So as I've already told you, USA has kept 145% tariff on China's exports, okay, under the Trump administration. Okay, so China want to strengthen. So in order to retaliate or in order to put itself in a safer point, what did it do is China used this particular tour, okay. So this particular president tour, they have used it to strengthen the ties with the South Asian nations like Vietnam, Malaysia and Cambodia. And also second reason is they want to position China as a stable partner and a reliable partner in the Indo-Pacific. Okay, Xi has signed almost 45 agreements with the Vietnam and 30 agreements with Malaysia. This shows that China is very much willing, it is showcasing its willingness to invest in the areas of Southeast Asia. Mainly they have invested in digital economy, artificial intelligence, agriculture, infrastructure, and more than 30 places or 30 streams they have invested. Okay, so definitely this will directly contrast US policies. So mainly the US policies in the Southeast Asia will be focusing on a protectionist measures. Okay, they will be in a security centric angle. For example, USA has come up with a grouping called as Quad. Okay, Quad, so India is also a part of Quad nation, but Quad is focusing mainly upon the security aspects. But what did China do? China has come up with the economic aspects with respect to ASEAN countries. Okay, and also so China want to promote regional leadership and they want to improve their soft power. Okay, they want to utilize this particular visit as a soft power tool. So they have emphasized non-interference in their cultural ties. So basically they have told, will not be interfering in your cultural ties. But Belt and Road Initiative is something they have proposed over there. They wanted those particular countries to join the Belt Road Initiative and to enhance the infrastructure as part of it. Okay, they have come up with certain kind of projects, for example, Fuan Teco Canal project in Cambodia. Okay, so in this way, by coming up with the infrastructure projects, by signing several agreements in different streams, what did China do is, China want to showcase itself as a willing partner or a most reliable partner with respect to ASEAN and the Southeast Asian nations. Okay, so let's see China's trade, whatever the China strategy is there in the Southeast Asia, let's understand it. What is the China's trade strategy in Southeast Asia? So here I want to introduce to a framework called as PESTEL framework. PESTEL framework is basing upon the different dimensions. For example, if you if you want to know the full form of it, P means political, E means economic aspects, S means social aspect, T means technological aspect, E means environmental aspects, and L means legal aspects. So, and as part of E, you can also relate ethical aspects if there is any possibility. Okay, so in this way, whenever you're thinking of the points, whenever you're trying to generate the points for the mains questions, you can think in this particular angles. You can think in political angle, economic angle, ecological angle, social angle, technological angle, environmental angle, okay, ethical angle and legal angle. In this particular dimensions, you can think and you can try to generate the points. So if you try it now, okay, so what is China's trade strategy in the Southeast Asia? If you try it now, let's apply the PESTEL strategy and understand how China is interfering in the political sphere, how it is interfering in the economic sphere and other spheres. Let's see that. So what is China doing is, they are investing, they have signed lot of agreements with the Southeast Asian nations. So through that, they want to buffer against the US trade pressures. So I have already told you, on the Chinese exports, USA has posed 145% tariffs. So China want to seek some politically less aligned trade partners. So that's the reason it has chosen the partners like Cambodia, Vietnam and Malaysia, which are the Southeast Asian nations. Okay, and as part of the political angle only, so they are using this particular tactic as a diplomatic tool or a soft power tool. Okay, so ASEAN countries are generally very much open to China's Belt and Road Initiative. They are very much open to the infrastructure investments also. So China is using this particular thing, okay, basically as they are open to all the agreements, so China is utilizing this particular opportunity to invest in the infrastructure project, and it want to politically leverage this particular opportunity. And if you think in an economic way, it is utilizing ASEAN countries as an alternative manufacturing base. Okay, they want to as there are some rise in the labor cost, okay, there are some export restrictions that the China is facing from the US side. Definitely ASEAN countries can act as a low cost manufacturing zone. Okay, China will definitely invest in Vietnam and it will invest in Malaysian industrial parks. Okay, as part of its China Plus strategy, definitely it is doing all of these things. Okay, it is expanding its market, it's expanding its infrastructure things. Okay, and as part of social measure, it is expanding the market. Okay, and as part of technical measures, so as they have signed 30 plus agreements with the different countries, so this also includes digital economic penetration, and they're mostly focusing on the emerging technologies like artificial intelligence and all. Okay, so they are mostly focusing on the new age technologies. And the environmental angle, okay, so environmental implications are also there. So for example, they have come up with some kind of infrastructure which will raise some ecological concerns, but this is not directly linked to the strategy of China. Okay, they have no discussion on the environmental angle. So this is an optional point, wherever if it is linking, if it is any linking anything, okay, you can mention that. But however, as part of this particular topic, environmental angle is not mentioned or it is not directly linked. And if you take the legal aspect, so RCEP integration, okay, Southeast Asia involvement in trade treaties like RCEP provides, will definitely provide China some legally backed free trade agreements also. So China can definitely come up with some free trade agreements with the Southeast Asia, which will definitely help their economy. In this way, China is using this particular tactic to enter into the different domains of the ASEAN nations. And which countries has signed the agreements with China? So it is Vietnam, Malaysia and Cambodia. Vietnam has signed agreements with respect to technology and economic collaboration. This is with respect to Malaysia, and with respect to Vietnam, they have signed some strategic and economic deepening investments. And with respect to Cambodia, they have signed some infrastructure projects. You don't need to go into the details of it, how many agreements they have signed, what are the MOUs, what are the different specific things. This is not needed for us. Okay, it's because this is because China's agreements, as these are China's agreement or Chinese agreements, we don't need to focus more on it. Okay. So US is also focusing on ASEAN nations, but the main aim of US is to expand its military presence in the Indo-Pacific region. So the agenda of US is different, the agenda of China is very much different. If you look at the economic angle, okay, so basically if you link the objective, or if you look at the objective of the both the nation, China is mainly focusing on economic angle. Okay, it is coming up with the economic diplomacy. It is constructing the project, it is investing in the infrastructure projects, whereas the USA's angle or the USA's strategies with respect to the security angle. That's why it has come up with initiatives like Quad, and it has come up with initiatives like AUKUS. Whereas with respect to China, China promotes non-interference into the cultural patterns or the cultural ties. Whereas the USA is actually imposing some political conditions. It is coming up with the engagement in democracy, human rights. It is coming up with the strategic alignment also. It is involving in the culture of that particular country. It is involving in the political sphere of that particular country, not only economy. Okay, so China offers clear economic incentives. For example, it is providing for the market access investments, whereas US initiatives often lack some concrete trade benefits. So basically USA is not focusing on the trade benefits, but it is focusing on the security angle. This is something which you have to remember. So whatever the things that we have learned, what will that particular things will have impact on India? This is the main thing that we need to focus, because this is something which UPSC asks. Whatever the steps or whatever the things that are going around with respect to China, ASEAN nations and USA, okay, whatever the relations they have, okay, whatever the change in relations that they possess, what kind of impact that India will have, okay, with the change in relations. Definitely India is also focusing on Southeast Asia. Because of the China's deepening ties with ASEAN countries, it will pose a certain harder threats to India. Okay, definitely if India want to expand its relation, definitely China will act as a competitor. Okay, so Vietnam is engaging with China now in order to deepen the maritime ties. Okay, so this will pose maritime tensions on India. And competitive pressures. So because of this particular thing, it will pose competition mainly to our initiatives like Act East policy, Mekong Ganga cooperation. All of this will have some kind of competition from China now. Okay, and next is there will be a risk of regional economic isolation also. Because of the China and ASEAN integration is becoming closer, this may sideline India. Because of this, we may get isolated from the particular region. Okay, we may get isolated in that particular South Asian region. Okay, so what should be the way forward? So this is the impact that India may face, right? So what is needed to be done by India? So India should deepen its engagement with Southeast Asia. So we need to come up with infrastructure projects, we need to sign some trade agreements, and we need to come up with the digital economy initiatives to compete China Belt and Road Initiative. Okay, we need to improve our connectivity, like we need to come up with the IMT, like India, Myanmar, Thailand trilateral highway. In the similar way, we need to come up with these kind of agreements further. We need to develop these kind of infrastructure further. And we need to focus on fostering strategic partnerships. Okay, so India should prioritize strengthening the ties with the ASEAN nations. We also need to focus on multilateral platforms like East Asia Summit. We need to focus on the summits like Quad, so that we can improve the security of the region and we can come up with regional stability measures. Okay, so these kind of steps that India can take in order to counter China's influence in the region. So this is the test your take aspect. You need to try it out whenever you buy the PDF. Let's look at the next article. Total allowable catch in fishing. So recently a legal dispute happened between USA and Russia with respect to total allowable catch. So that's why the concept of total allowable catch has come into the spotlight. Okay, it has come into the discussion. So therefore we need to learn it for the prelims point of view. So total allowable catch is nothing but it's a maximum quantity of a specific fish species that can be largely or legally accepted or legally harvested. So the amount of fish that can be legally harvested That maximum amount of fish that can be legally harvested is nothing but total allowable catch. Okay, so this particular total allowable catch or a maximum limit is kept or it is established to prevent the overfishing, so that we can have a sustainable fishing populations. Okay, so this allowable catch will put some limit, and it is very much essential for maintaining the ecological balance, and it will be helpful for the long term fishing industry, and it will be helpful in maintaining or making fishing industry sustainable. Right, I hope you have understood what is total allowable catch. So these are the standards that are set by the international fisheries marketing like fisheries management organizations. For example, we have Food and Agriculture Organization, regional fisheries management organizations. So these are the organizations which will mention these guidelines of total allowable fish. For example, if you take the case of European Union, so total available catches are managed under the common fisheries policies. So they'll set some quotas for member states. So there are a number of countries in European Union, right? So all of these European Union nations will have some kind of strict limit, so which is called as common fishery policy. They'll set some quotas. Okay, mostly these member states need to follow those quotas. Okay, so with respect to India, if you look at the case of India, India enforces a seasonable fishing ban in the exclusive economic zone. So at certain seasons, will ban fishing in the economic exclusive zone. Okay, exclusive economic zones. So that season will last for 61 days to protect the breeding of fish. Okay, we are doing this because we need to protect the fish with respect to the breeding season. Okay, this particular ban serves as a TAC equivalent of 0 for specific period, supporting fish stock regeneration. So this particular ban for certain period of time will support for fish to regenerate, fish stock to regenerate. Okay, we are supporting for the regeneration of the fish stock. And in the case of New Zealand, the Fisheries Act will specify some TACs for various stocks, and it will specify some catch limits also. So in this way, different countries will have different rules. So you need to remember about India. Okay, so after buying the PDF, you can solve this particular things. Now let's go to another article, India-US Energy and Nuclear Partnership. So this is another article we need to focus upon. So US Vice President J.D. Vance has mentioned, recently he has mentioned in the month of May, he has mentioned that US is ready to work more closely with India, especially in the fields of energy and defense. So what are the main areas that India and US want to cooperate? Mainly in the field of energy, in the field of defense, and also in the fields of mobility and innovation exchange. So we want to, as part of energy, we want to access to sustainable energy part, reliable energy and affordable energy. So all of the countries are focusing on affordable energy. Definitely we need some affordability so that we can get economic gains, and the reliable and trustable partnership, and the sustainable one. Right, it should be sustainable for the longer period of time. So as part of it, we already came up with certain MOUs also in the past. So we have signed an MOU, that is Memorandum of Understanding, in the year 2024. Both the countries have signed to diversify the supply chains. Okay, we know nowadays China is weaponizing the critical mineral supply chains. So in order to counter that, so both the countries are partnering with respect to critical mineral exploration and also development. Right, mainly especially with respect to critical minerals like lithium and rare earth metals, which are very much helpful for the production of electronic vehicles. Right, and also to come up with a more advanced technology. And in the fields of defense and technology, we are also cooperating with each other. For example, we have got something called as ICET framework, where through this particular framework, India and USA are collaborating for the defense co-production. Okay, so and to develop the advanced systems, and also something called as small modular reactors. So small modular reactors are nothing but, so which helps in production of the nuclear energy. Okay, so this requires lesser space, lesser land area. So because of that, it is sustainable for the longer period of time. And the next one is in the field of mobility and innovation exchange also, we are trying to cooperate with USA. So this particular innovation exchange will help in enhancing the people-to-people ties between both the countries, and also it will help in high technological partnerships as it is focusing on innovation. Okay, this will boost economic growth of both the countries, and it will help in enhancing the innovation ecosystem of both the countries. So as part of it, if you look at an example, India and US are working to ease skilled labor mobility, and they are also working in co-developing innovation corridors, especially with respect to the technology and with respect to the areas of semiconductors and artificial intelligence. So remember that India and USA are more focusing on three important areas. One is with respect to energy security. So mainly they're focusing on nuclear energy. Okay, so next one is with respect to defense and technology. So they wanted to co-produce the defense equipment. Okay, and also they want to develop small modular reactors, and they are focusing on mobility and innovation exchange, where they are focusing on people to people ties and to foster this particular opportunity to develop the innovation sector, to improve the innovation ecosystem of the countries. So why coming up with a mineral partnership vital for both the countries? So if we want to come up with any military partnership that is between USA and India, why will it be vital for both the countries? It is because the first reason is it will act as a strategic resource security. Basically, critical minerals, if we are collaborating with each other with respect to minerals, okay, minerals, mainly the critical minerals, these critical minerals are helpful for the development of cleaner form of energy. For example, in electronic vehicles, we have a requirement of lithium ion batteries. Okay, so in this way, critical minerals are very much important for the critical sector's development and to come up with a clean energy. It will be helpful in electronics, in defense sector, and also the current supply chains are more dependent on China and Taiwan. Mainly China is trying to weaponize this particular supply chains. So because of that, what we are doing is, as China is nearly controls 90% of the global rare earth processing. So remember that global rare earth minerals processing is 90% done by the China only. China is controlling this particular area. So definitely, because of this availability or because of this particular so positive effect that China possesses, it is using this particular opportunity to weaponize the supply chains. So in order to counter that, both the countries need to focus on resource security. So as part of it, mineral partnership is important. As part of mineral partnership, both the countries, USA and India, together need to invest on exploring of the minerals. Okay, mainly in the areas of Africa. Okay, we know African region is rich. It is basically rich in resources. So we need to explore in the African region and other nations too. And both the countries need to come up with some kind of alternatives to counter the Chinese influence or Chinese control. Economic and technological collaboration is needed between both the countries. We have signed MOUs in the past in 2024 to co-invest in the third country mineral projects, especially, as I've already told you, in the areas of Africa and in the areas of South America. Both the countries are together investing, okay, to come up with a collaboration. And also we are focusing on supply chain diversification. So we want to sign a mineral partnership because we want to build a resilient, transparent and traceable supply chain rather than depending wholly on China. Okay, so to counter China's weaponization or to counter China's domination in this particular field, okay, in order to avoid that monopoly or in order to control that monopoly of China, we are coming up with the mineral partnership, which is very much vital for both the nation to counter China. Okay, so how can nuclear energy help India? Basically, we have lot of energy goals, right? So we need to meet the 2070 net zero targets, Panchamrit goals and many more. So mainly we are depending on renewable energy sources. We are trying to decrease the usage of fossil fuels. So in order to meet our energy goals, definitely nuclear energy is something which is going to become an alternative. So we know wind energy and solar energy are also reliable alternatives, but they will not be 24/7. So we know we need to utilize the solar energy and wind energy only when it is present. And we don't have proper storage systems in order to store the energy that comes from the sun, the energy that comes from the wind. So definitely one such an alternative which can actually counter this particular negative effects from this particular solar energy or wind energy is nuclear energy. Nuclear energy can be a proper alternative to counter this particular issues. So nuclear energy provides a firm and low emission alternative to fossil fuels, and it will also help in meeting our energy targets and to decarbonize. Okay, so nuclear power as of now, with respect to India, we are contributing only 8 gigawatt, We are contributing only 8 gigawatt, but it is very much crucial for India to meet the net zero goals. So in order to meet the net zero goals by 2070, we need to achieve our target of 100 gigawatts by 2047. So our target is to achieve the 100 gigawatt capacity of nuclear energy by 2047. So as of now, we are only 8 gigawatt capacity. Okay, we are only having 8 gigawatts. So base load power stability. So nuclear power energy or nuclear energy will ensure continuous electricity supply. Okay, so it will complement the issues that are there with respect to solar sources and the wind sources. Okay, so nuclear energy and nuclear plants will ensure that we will get the uninterrupted power. This will stabilize the grid as renewable sources will always fluctuate. So and also nuclear energy is important because this is a high energy output and it requires only smaller amount of area. Okay, it will utilize the land, very less land area. So because of that, it is very much important. If you take the case of solar energy or the wind energy, it requires lot of land requirement. It requires the land. But in the case of nuclear energy, the land requirement is very, very less. Okay, so it is useful because it will have the higher output if you compare it to the solar energy or the wind energy per unit land area. Okay, which is very much important mainly in the areas of land scarce region. Okay, so and also for this we are developing small modular reactors mainly by collaborating with USA. So small modular reactors are reactors which requires very lower land requirements, and these are very much suitable for water scarce areas, land scarce areas and water scarce areas because of the air cooling. Okay, and also this will help in nuclear energy boost will also help in industrial decarbonization support. Nuclear power can drive clean energy transitions mainly in the sectors like steel, okay, and in the sectors like AI based data centers. We know so AI based data centers will use lot of energy. Okay, lot of power is required, lot of power generation is required for the artificial intelligence data centers, so which actually hampers the environment. So nuclear energy can act as a proper alternative to counter this particular issue. Okay, and also this will help in strategic energy independence. So what is the main issue is, as of now, India is facing energy insecurity. So because most of the times for the purpose of energy we are depending upon the other countries, even for coal, even for the oil and many other energy sources also we are depending on other countries. So by coming up and by developing nuclear energy, we can be strategically independent and we can ensure the national energy security of the nation. So our target is by 2047 we have to reach 100 gigawatt of nuclear target. Okay, so by this we are trying to decrease the dependence on imported oil and imported coal. Okay, so which reforms are key to expanding India's nuclear capacity then? So in order to expand the nuclear capacity of India, so what are the key reforms that we need to come up with? First thing is we need to deploy it faster, deploy the energy requirements faster, and we need to standardize. What does it mean? So we need to accelerate construction timelines. So whatever the nuclear energy setup that we are coming up with, we need to construct by coming up with the timelines. Okay, we need to fix the timelines of adopting them, and we need to adopt standardized reactor designs to lower the cost and to ensure quick scaling of nuclear energy capacity. So as of now we are having only 8 gigawatt. We are trying to reach by 2047 we are trying to reach 100 gigawatts capacity. For that proper time requirements, timeline construction is required, and also we have to come up with the standardized models. So reducing construction time from 9 to 6 years is important. Okay, and it will reduce electricity cost by 8%. So if we are constructing or if we are scaling up the timelines or we are fastening up the construction of the nuclear energy models, so from 9 years to 6 years, if we are decreasing the time period of construction by 3 years, we can actually reduce the electricity cost by 8%. So this will definitely help India meet the target of 2047 nuclear capacity goals, and it will also help in 2070 energy targets. Okay. So next one is we need to involve the private sectors. We need to facilitate private investments and we need to encourage the public-private partnerships also by providing the incentives to them so that they will be attracting them to invest in these particular areas. Okay, and also especially mainly in the areas of small modular reactors, we need to encourage them to invest in these areas. So basically small modular reactors requires lower capital expenditure in the initial way, so definitely it will become a financially viable option for the private sector. So that so what we need to do is we need to encourage private sector participation in the development of this nuclear energy installments. Okay, and next one is we need to come up with the measures and reforms. Okay, legislative reforms and policy reforms are something which we need to attract or we need to do. Okay, we need to bring that reforms. So at present we have different laws which deals with the nuclear energy. For example, we have Civil Liability for Nuclear Damage Act, which is an important act. Remember, this will be always seen in the news. So because this particular act has few loopholes, so whenever some nuclear damage happens or if there is any nuclear accident happens in India, so who will be a primary responsible person or who will be more accountable for that particular damages? Manufacturers and producers. Okay, so definitely as they are being accountable, so private companies are hesitant to invest in the nuclear sectors because of this provision in the Nuclear Damage Act of Civil Liability for Nuclear Damage Act of 2010. Okay, as this particular act is not favorable for the private companies and it is not favorable for the foreign companies, they are being hesitant to invest in this particular areas. So what we need to do is we need to reform these kind of laws. Okay, we need to amend the Civil Liability for Nuclear Damage Act before making them invest in this particular area. Okay, so what are the steps that are taken by the Indian government then to boost the nuclear energy? So what we'll do is, so here we'll try to approach apply the life cycle approach. So life cycle approach is an important approach, so which you can use throughout your mains papers. Okay, where you need to try to generate the points for any topic based on the life cycle. For example, if you take the case of nuclear energy, so production is the initial stage. Okay, raw materials, production and licensing is the initial stage. Next, transmission, okay, is the another stage. Users are the third stages. In this way, there will be a life cycle of this particular approach, right? So what will be the life cycle? Basically for the nuclear energy, for the nuclear energy, you can divide the life cycle from generation, then we'll distribute, okay, then we will utilize at the consumer level. Finally, we need to impact on the long-term sustainability also. So first stage is generation stage, next distribution stage, next utilization stage, and all of them should happen in the long term. Okay, they need to be sustainable. So these are the 4 areas you need to think of while generating the points. Okay, so for all the 4 particular areas in the life cycle, okay, so this is the life cycle in the generation stage, distribution stage, utilization stage and long-term stability or sustainability. So these are the 4 areas where India is trying to, okay, invest on. Okay, these are the 4 particular zones or 4 particular components or 4 particular areas where India will be trying to invest or India will be trying to come up with the policies in order to improve the nuclear energy capacity of India. So we need to think of in that way. Okay, you need to think in that way, you need to remember the points in that way. You can, because this will help you to remember the points for the longer period of time, and in the exam hall you can apply directly in any of the answers. Okay, so for example, in the generation stage, for improving the generation or for improving the production of the nuclear energy, what kind of steps we have bought? First one is we have kept the net zero target. In order to achieve the net zero target by 2070, what we have done is we have kept a target of reaching 100 gigawatt of nuclear energy by 2047. So for this, proper kind of measures are taken by India. Okay, so we are coming up with small modular reactors. Okay, we are trying to cooperate with the countries like USA, so to come up with the small modular reactors. Okay, these kind of steps are already taken by India in order to increase the production. Okay, in order to increase the generation of this particular thing. Okay, next, if you think of the point or if you think of what did government do with respect to transmission and distribution stage, so government is coming up so with variable renewables energies. For example, in order to meet our energy demand, we are coming up with an alternative measure, that is the nuclear energy, which provides for steady and predictable supply, and we are trying to Okay, so for coming up with the transmission and distribution phase, for improving this particular phase, we are trying to amend the laws also. We are trying to amend the existing laws. And coming to the utilization stage, we are focusing on industrial decarbonization. Okay, so we are coming up with green steel manufacturing and AI data centers, so they can run SMRs. Okay, basically we are deploying SMRs in the data centers, and also while coming up with the steel manufacturing, we are utilizing this nuclear energy, mainly the small modular reactors, to develop and deploy them, okay, in order to develop that particular goods. Okay, so in this way we have taken lot of measures. Let's see once again. So we are trying to expand the infrastructure, okay, nuclear power infrastructure, to meet the target of 100 gigawatts by 2047, and we are working on commissioning new plants to achieve this target. For example, we have come up with something called the Kudankulam nuclear power plant, and the new reactors are also on the way. And next, most of the reforms are also bought. For example, we are trying to modify, in the recent times also you might have seen this in the news, that we are trying to amend the Civil Liability for Nuclear Damage Act of 2010. So this will help in attracting the private sectors, and also it will help in attracting the foreign sectors also, okay, foreign people also to invest in the India. And international collaborations are something which we are focusing on. So India is fostering strategic partnerships. For example, we are collaborating with USA. So in this way also we are trying to invest in the nuclear energy sectors. Okay, so in this way, so government has taken few steps in order to increase the investment in the sectors. So let's come back to the life cycle approach. So try to apply the life cycle approach for this particular question. Try to attempt it. There is a need for simplification of procedures for disbursement of healthcare in India. Comment. So for generating this particular point, okay, for generating the points for this particular question, what you can do is you can apply the life cycle approach. Just imagine a patient's health journey. Okay, first thing is he need to prevent that particular disease. However, if the disease is getting attacked, first thing what we need to do is we need to diagnose ourselves. Next, based on the diagnosis, based on the results that we get after the diagnosis, we need to take the treatment. And after the treatment, we need to go for the follow-up checkups. Okay, next we have to come up with the rehabilitation measures also. Basically, this is the life cycle of the patient. So try to apply at each stage, try to apply and try to think of the points at each stage, so that you can generate the points in a quicker way. So for example, let's apply it over here. There is a need for simplification of the procedures for disbursement of the healthcare in India. So for the first thing what we can do is, for the prevention stage, what we can do is, how we need to simplify the procedure by coming up with the labeling. So FSSI need to take necessary actions by coming up with the labeling on the packaging items. For example, if you are consuming the biscuits, so biscuits, on the packet of biscuits, there should be a proper labeling, visible labeling should be there. How much sugar content is there, how much fat content is there. So this simple procedure or this simplification will help the patient, okay, will help the customer or will help the consumer to properly look into it and to avoid it in the first stage only. Okay, this is the first simplified procedure that India can come up with, or India need to do. In the diagnosis stage, we need to develop, okay, or we need to deploy the artificial intelligence techniques, so that we can simply complete the diagnosis process without any hectic procedures. Okay, so in this way you need to try to generate the points at each stage. Okay, so this is how you need to approach the life cycle. You can apply same thing with respect to agriculture also. So from the raw materials till the transportation and the consumption stage, you can apply all the particular points. Okay, you can try to brainstorm in that particular life cycle approach to generate the points for any question on agriculture. So in this way you need to utilize the life cycle approach in your mains answers. Okay, while making the notes also you need to think of in this way, so that you can make your notes more attractive, so that will be directly replicable in your answers. Okay, so that was about that particular article or that particular news item. So here is the test your take part. You need to test your things. Okay, after reading in this particular article, you need to solve this particular question, so in order to test your take. Okay, now let's go to another article. Quad Indo-Pacific Logistics Network. So if you might have heard the Quad grouping, so the Quad grouping consists of 4 particular nations. One is India, second one, third one, and fourth one. So basically there are 4 countries. One is Japan, one is India, one is Australia, and one is USA. Okay, so these are the 4 nations which are part of the Quad. So this particular Quad grouping is mainly countering China's presence in the Indo-Pacific region, and in order to increase the presence of India and also other countries in the Pacific region, Indo-Pacific region. So this is the main agenda of Quad grouping. Okay, so Quad grouping, what did Quad grouping do? Why it is in the news? It is in the news because they have conducted a tabletop exercise which took place in Hawaii. Okay, Honolulu is a place where this particular tabletop exercise was conducted. So as part of this particular exercise, we are trying to stimulate, as we went to this particular exercise, we are trying to stimulate the launch of something called as Indo-Pacific Logistics Network. So this will be important for the preliminary stage. Okay, so this will be important for your prelims point of view. Remember, so we are trying to stimulate the launch of Indo-Pacific Logistics Network. What is this Indo-Pacific Logistics Network all about? So as the name suggests, this is about a logistics network. Okay, logistics network, but when this particular network will be developed. So this is a Quad-led initiative which will be focusing on coordinating shared logistics, as I've already told you. Okay, so this will be focusing on a shared logistics between among 4 nations for civilian disaster response. So this is basically for the disaster management. If any disasters occur in the Indo-Pacific regions, for the quicker response to that particular disaster, we need to share the logistics that are there among the 4 nations. So this is the main agenda of this Indo-Pacific Logistics Network. Okay, so it aims to enable the rapid deployment of the humanitarian aid, okay, during the natural disasters. For example, if any cyclone occurs or tsunami occurs, or if there is any public health emergency, so they need to coordinate, they need to share the logistics, and the humanitarian aid should be a very quicker. Okay, so this initiative strengthens interoperability. This will help in sharing the resources, and this will help in real-time coordination also among the 4 nations. So this includes digital logistics mapping. They'll map the logistics. They'll come up with a joint resource planning, and real-time tracking capabilities of all the nations, all the 4 nations will increase because of this initiatives. Okay, so this was launched through a tabletop exercise which was held in Honolulu, Hawaii. So this took place from April 28 to May 2nd, 2025. So this initiative complements the Quad efforts like Indo-Pacific Partnership for Maritime Domain Awareness. Okay, to come up here or to enhance this particular initiatives also, this initiative is going to help. Okay, so this reinforces Quad broader goal of acting as a force for good in the Indo-Pacific region. So broader goal of the Quad grouping is they are being a force for good of that particular Indo-Pacific region. Okay, as part of this broader goal, IPLN will be a greater step. Okay, if you go back to the basics, which is important for the preliminary stage, Quad is a strategic forum which consists of these 4 nations. One is India, one is US, one is Japan, and one is Australia. So try to remember these 4 nations because it is very important. Quad grouping is such a grouping you'll always see in the news. Okay, so their main aim is to promote a free, open, inclusive, and rule-based Indo-Pacific. So they want to make Indo-Pacific free, open for all the nations, and it want to make it inclusive for all the countries, and also it needed to be based on certain rules, okay, which China is avoiding. Okay, China want to monopolize its presence in the Indo-Pacific regions. To counter that, the Japan, Australia, USA, and India are striving to counter that particular Chinese dominance in this region. It does not have a formal structure, but it functions through some summits, ministerial meetings, and joint exercises will also be conducted. For example, Malabar exercise. Okay, so what is its core objective? It is to counter China's influence and to support some democratic ideals and humanitarian rights and rule of law in this particular region. So this group was initially originated in 2004 during the Indian Ocean tsunami relief efforts, mainly after that, okay, post tsunami during 2000s. And this was formally proposed by the Japanese PM Shinzo Abe. Okay, so he was recently, okay, 1 or 2 years back, he has expired if you remember. So Shinzo Abe has suggested the idea of Quad grouping. Although we have suspended the Quad grouping in 2008, we have revived it in 2017 for emergency regional challenges. For emerging regional challenges, to counter that particular emergencies, we have come up with we have revived the Quad in 2017. Okay, so there are some notable activities and naval exercises that will be conducted. For example, Malabar Naval Exercise will be conducted by 4 nations, and initiatives like IPMDA, Quad Fellowship, Open RAN, AI Engage, these are all the initiatives that are run by 4 countries as part of Quad. And they are also emphasizing on humanitarian aid, disaster relief, and emerging technology collaboration. So as part of disaster relief only, so this IPLN, where logistics will be shared, a network of logistics will be there to counter the disasters, okay, to deploy the humanitarian assistance quickly if there is any disaster in the Indo-Pacific region. So for that, IPLN was bought, okay, remember that. So this is the test you take part, which you need to solve once you buy the PDF. Now let's go to another news or another article. Caution and optimism on India's FTA with the UK. So basically I'm not going to deal this with this particular article. It is because in the month of July, that is in this month, we have formally signed an FTA. So definitely in the month of July, this FTA, when I am discussing the articles of July month, definitely I'll be repeating this part wholly with a critical analysis also. So that's the reason I don't want to duplicate my efforts. Okay. So now let's go to another article. US-China trade deal. So recently US has agreed to temporarily reduce the tariffs on Chinese goods. So basically I might have told you, I didn't remember exactly. So China's goods were posed by, okay, so they were posed tariffs of 145% by the USA. Okay, but USA recently what it has done is, it has reduced this particular tariffs from 145% to 30% for the 90 days duration. Okay, so and China will lower its tariff on the American products from 125% to 10%. So this is a temporary step which you don't need to remember. The numbers are not important. Just remember the context. Okay. So what are the key terms of this US-China trade truce then? So they wanted to decrease the tariffs. Okay, they want to decrease it by 10% and 30% or so. You don't need to remember again. So the reprieve is limited to 90 days only. So this is a temporary measure. So the announcement led to 2% to 3.8% rise in the markets worldwide. Earlier in April, the US has excluded China from 90-day reciprocal tariff pause. So this is a temporary measure which is not needed. Just remember that the tariffs which were announced by USA and like China earlier were reduced to certain percentage for the period of 90 days. So this is the only thing that you have to remember. And this is a temporary phenomena. Okay, so you don't need to remember the numbers also. So why has the US trade deficit with China remained unresolved despite the tariff rollback? So the basic question is, why has USA trade deficit with China remained unresolved? So basically USA have a trade deficit with China. So even or despite of imposing lot of tariffs on China, this trade deficit is a problem which was unresolved. Why is it happening for USA? It is because the action is temporary and because of the limited rollback of tariffs. So as it reduced the tariffs for 90 days, because of that it was not able to solve the trade deficit issue. Okay, so such short-term measures may ease the tensions but do not address the long-term trade. Okay, core issue of trade imbalance not addressed. What is the core issue? The agreement is focusing on reducing tariffs but does not compel China to increase imports of USA. So basically the trade deficit happens towards the USA. Okay, the trade deficit is negative from the side of USA. It is because US goods are not welcomed by China. Okay, US goods are not properly imported to China. I'm sorry. Yeah. So US goods are not properly imported to China. This is the main issue. So by increasing the tariffs or because of decreasing the tariffs, this particular root issue will not get solved. Okay, this is the main problem. Okay, again you don't need to remember all of that. How might the US-China agreement affect India's position? So this is the main area that you have to remember. So whatever the issue that is happening in the world, how it is impacting India. So this is something which we are concerned with. Okay, whatever the things that happened, the reduction of tariffs and all, how it is going to impact India then. So This will reduce urgency for diversification. So the easing of tensions may lead global firms to reconsidering shifting away from China. So basically, reducing momentum behind the China plus one strategy. For example, companies that were exploring alternatives like India or Vietnam may delay. So for example, let me tell you what is China plus one strategy. So this is a strategy where the companies, the investors and the private companies, etc., they'll try to diversify the supply chains, or they'll try to diversify the investment destinations. They'll try to see the alternatives to China, because on China's goods or Chinese goods may face lot of tariffs in the future. So that this particular companies who are investing in China will face lot of issues. So in order to avoid that particular thing, companies will try to think of the other destinations. For example, Vietnam. For example, India can be chosen as an ideal destination. So China plus one strategy is diversification of the investment zones or investment destinations, or diversification of the supply chains. So this is basically the agenda or the main idea of China plus one strategy. But as these particular tariffs are reduced, okay, as both the countries have reduced the tariffs, so the companies will wait for the little period. Okay, they might not think of alternatives. They might not think of investing in India or Vietnam for the certain period of time. They might go back to the China. So this is the first impact that India may face. So and the second issue is, despite of India seen as an ideal destination, Vietnam is a more important alternative for China. Okay, for example, if a company is trying to find any alternative other than China, they look into certain areas like India, Vietnam, where markets are huge, where there is an ideal environment for the investment. So they might see Vietnam, they might see India. But if you look at India and Vietnam, Vietnam is more favorable for the companies than India, because India is already facing some structural challenges with respect to the China plus one strategy. So we are not having favorable environment to attract the investment. That is another problem that we are facing. Okay. So what is China plus one strategy? China plus one strategy is a business strategy adopted by multinational companies to diversify their manufacturing operations and supply chains beyond China. This is what I've told you already. Okay, so what challenges that India face in its trade negotiations with USA? So as we have seen the trade negotiations between USA and China, so it is high time for us to know also about the negotiations between USA and China with respect to trade. So we are also facing a lot of retaliatory tariff pressures. For example, India has had to respond to US tariff hikes on steel and aluminium. Okay, so on the areas of steel, on the areas of aluminium, so US is imposing a lot of tariffs. So after the US imposed duties under Section 232, India has notified the WTO of its plan to raise tariffs on American products. For example, when the USA has increased the tariffs on the sectors like steel and aluminium, we also informed WTO that we are also raising the tariffs on the imports from the USA. Like we are importing almonds and apples from USA, so we are imposing tariffs on also these particular products. Okay, so there is a pending comprehensive trade agreement with USA. So despite of lot of talks with the USA, both countries have struggled to finalize a broad based trade deal. Okay, and also this is because, okay, why we are not able to sign a trade deal? This is because of the disagreements over the market access for USA. So USA wanted us to import the dairy products and medical devices from the USA to India. But what happens is this will hit the domestic industries of India. Definitely, India is famous for the dairy products. We are famous for the pharmaceuticals. So if we are importing the US products, definitely that will hit the domestic industries. So that is the reason we are not agreeing with this particular thing. Okay, so this is leading to the disagreement of the trade deal between both the countries. A thaw in US-China trade ties may reduce Washington's interest in deepening trade relations with India, limiting India's leverage. Okay, if US firms regain confidence in China post-agreement, India may lose the strategic advantage it gained during the earlier trade disruption. So, when the China and USA, okay, so have agreed to reduce the tariffs, definitely this reduction of tariffs will not let USA to invest in India. So, USA might not show to interest to invest in India because it is easing its norms with China. Okay, if there is a ease of norms of USA and China with respect to trade deals and all, so USA might not feel or be interested to invest in India. Okay, so these are the different issues that India is facing because of that. So why must Indian states implement labor and land reforms to reduce dependence on Chinese imports? So first thing, why labor reforms are needed is because the Indian government has amended labor laws to make it easier for industries to hire and fire workers, fostering a more flexible labor market. For example, we have amended and we have brought lot of codes in the labor reforms. Okay, for example, we have something called the Code of Industrial Relations. So this will consolidate all the we used to have multiple labor laws. We have consolidated them into 4 subheadings. Okay, we have simplified the labor laws. So by simplifying the labor laws, okay, the investors will try to invest in India. So we can attract the investments from the investors from the private sectors and also from the foreign companies, because they might see this particular ease of labor norms as a part of ease of doing business. Okay, land acquisition and infrastructure development is something which you have to do. Okay, government must streamline land acquisition processes. We need to enhance the infrastructures so that we can attract the industries to invest in India. Okay, so the National Industrial Corridor Development Corporation is developing dedicated industrial zones which will improve connectivity, and also it will help in easing and fastening up the land acquisition. Okay, so improving this land acquisition process will also improving this licensing norms will also attract the foreign investments. So that will be favorable for us as part of China +1 strategy. Okay, so let's analyze how far we are utilizing the China's +1 strategy. So this is the main analysis that is required for the exam point of view. So I have told you China +1 strategy is a strategy which the manufacturers are using in order to find the alternatives to China. Okay, for example, they are finding alternatives like India, Vietnam, where they are trying to invest, because China is facing a lot of issues with respect to USA. Okay, even during the COVID-19 time, so as China was severely affected by COVID-19, so a lot of supply chain issues were there in the global economy. So at that particular time only, manufacturers has come up with an idea of China +1 strategy where they are trying to diversify the supply chains. So how far India is utilizing this opportunity? So let's try to apply a life cycle approach. Just now I've introduced it to you, a life cycle approach with respect to nuclear energy, right? So let's try to apply that particular life cycle approach over this China +1 strategy also. So China +1 strategy is about investments, right? So the production of the products, right? So how does the production takes place? For example, we require raw materials. Before that, in order to invest or in order to develop a company, we need licensing, permissions, environmental regulations needed to be followed. Next, the raw material is needed and we need to produce it. Okay, so proper norms and proper legislation and proper favorable environment should be there with respect to production stage. And next is with respect to storage of goods. Okay, proper transportation should be there in order to transport the products. Okay, infrastructure in the transportation should be there. Next, finally, consumption. Okay, sometimes what we'll do is we'll export the product. Okay, so at the export stage also we may face lot of issues with respect to export, like there can be lot of tariffs in the other country, or there can be stricter environmental guidelines. So these kind of steps, this is the life cycle, how a product will be designed, how a product or a company will come up with the product manufacturing, production stage, storage, transportation, consumption and export. So this is the life cycle of a product. So let's think of the points in this way only. So for each stage, let's think one or two points. For example, in the licensing stage, okay, so India has complex license norms and we have complex environmental regulations. For example, strict EIA processes. So because of which we are not able to attract the investors. Okay. So however, for the sake of land acquisition, for the sake of environmental norms, recently we have brought a lot of reforms also. We are using blockchain technology. We are coming up with several schemes, satellite technology to identify the land. Land acquisition process has become very, very easier. Okay. Next, in the raw material stage, a lot of times the critical minerals and the critical minerals which are required for the production of the or development of the blockchain technology or electric vehicle technology is absent in India. So we are facing issues with respect to raw materials. Still, India is famous for rice, wheat, paddy, okay, agriculture products, agricultural raw materials, and we are important in the areas of IT industries, okay. So we are important in the areas of pharmaceuticals. So in these particular areas, India is doing well. However, the strategic minerals are absent in India. While like if you go to the production stage, in the production stage also we are facing lot of issues. Okay, while land acquisition, okay, while acquiring the land, and in the production stage, sometimes we are facing issues from the local communities, okay, from the tribals. And in the production stage, we have come up with few measures also. For example, we have come up with something called as PLI scheme, okay, production linked incentive schemes. But however, PLI scheme is not applicable on all the sectors, okay, so that is a problem. And coming to the storage, we don't have proper storage facilities in India, okay. Coming to the perishable goods, okay, the proper cold storage facilities are absent. And coming to transportation, so India is lacking proper infrastructure. However, we have already come up with the infrastructure projects like Golden Quadrilateral. Okay, we are developing multimodal networks. Okay, coming to the consumption stage, consumption stage, what is important is a quality control. So if we have a quality control only, at the consumption stage, the customer will like the product. But lot of times, if you recently see the syrups, the cup syrups that India is coming up with, or the different products that India is producing, so they are facing certain kind of issues in the areas of in the areas like Gambia, okay, Namibia. So they are repeatedly complaining on India's products, okay, because of the lack of quality. So these kind of quality control measures are also absent. Effective quality control is not being done at the consumption stage or the customer stage. And when we are exporting, we are facing lot of tariffs by other countries. For example, European Union is actually imposing lot of tariffs on Indian products, as they are not, okay, they are not satisfying the environmental rules, strong environmental rules. So these kind of tariff barriers are also we are facing. And there are problems related to trade agreements. For example, FTAs. Okay, we are not able to sign proper FTAs. So for example, with European Union only, we have lot of issues with respect to signing of FTAs with other countries. Okay, so these are all the issues that India is facing with respect to utilization of the China Plus One strategy. Because of these loopholes, we are not able to utilize it well. So you might have understood how I utilize this life cycle approach to generate the points. At each stage, I have tried to come up with a positive point, negative point, government steps. So in this idea only, this particular approach, you need to use it in the exam hall. In this way only, you need to think and generate the points in the exam hall while sitting in the exam hall. Okay, so licensing and permissions, I have told, lot of complex regulatory complaints are there. So lot of delays in the environmental and land clearances. But government has come up with single window clearance systems, business reforms. Minor offences were decriminalized by the like recent amendments. Okay, we have simplified the norms under PLI. Okay. And also coming to the raw materials and inputs, we have challenges like electronics, rare earth metals. We are lacking those materials. However, India is coming up with national mineral policy. We are doing lithium exploration. So recently we have found some reserves in Jammu and Kashmir. We are doing exploration. We are partnering with other countries like USA. Just now we have studied, right? And we are coming up with the focus of Atmanirbhar Bharat. So in this way, we are trying to take the steps. In the production and manufacturing stage, so we have come up with the ideology of PLI. So as of now, it is applicable in the 14 plus sectors. Remember this particular thing which is important for the prelims. And strength is that we are growing in electronics and also auto components, pharma sectors, IT industries. Okay, we are developing industrial corridors, pharma parks, etc. And labor rights and employment, so this is another thing that is there with respect to the production stage. So informal workforce is only is contributing 90%. So most of the workforce are unorganized and are also working in the informal sectors. So because of that, they are lacking the social security measures. Okay, this is leading to the skill mismatch, and lot of low productivity is also there from the employment sectors in India. So to consolidate it, to improve the conditions of them, we have bought labor codes. For example, even for the gig workers, Okay, we are trying to provide the social security measures. So in this way we are trying, even for the gig workers we have bought the e-shram portal, and recently we have come up with employment incentive scheme. Okay, so in this way we are trying to come up with few measures. And next, coming to the storage and warehousing stage. So here we have poor warehousing. Okay, mainly we have like little warehousing growth only, and government has come up with the steps like PM Gati Shakti, and we have allowed 100% foreign direct investments in the warehousing sectors, through which we are trying to increase the warehousing capacity of India. Okay, in transportation stage we are coming up with the like projects like Bharat Mala, Sagar Mala, quadrilateral project. Okay, so golden quadrilateral, so Udan scheme. So this all will improve in helping us to improve the connectivity. And coming to logistics, to improve the logistics we have come up with logistics policy also. Logistics data bank is also something which we are using to improve the exports. Okay, so we have come up with electronic exports. We have recorded increase in electronic exports. Okay, so and we have come up with the steps like districts as exports hubs. So these are all the steps that India has taken, government has taken. And to improve the supply chains, so we have come up with the steps like PLI schemes. India is also part of Indo-Pacific Economic Framework. Okay, and also we are putting some restrictions in other countries. We are facing some restrictions in other countries. For example, in European Union, we are facing environmental complaints issues, carbon complaints issues, tariff barriers is something which we are facing. Okay, for this we are signing FTAs. Okay, so we have signed FTA with UK. So today and yesterday it was in the news. So customer satisfaction and global competitiveness is another problem. So we are facing some quality innovation issues, global branding issues. For this problem to be solved, we have quality control orders for 600 plus products. So these kind of steps we have taken with respect to improving the quality. In this way, we need to think. For each stage, what I have done is I have come up with the what kind of progress that India has come, and what kind of steps that India need to take, and what are the government steps that are already taken. So in this way, you need to try to think and generate the points. Okay, what more can be done? We need to improve the logistics. Raw material scarcity security should be strengthened by proper exploration, by investing more in the exploration, and we need to tie up with the countries like Africa. We need to partnership with USA country for the USA and other countries for the joint exploration. We need to sign the FTAs, improve the trade diplomacy, move from cost-led economy and cost-led manufacturing to quality-led. Okay, we have to enhance and we have to stick to the BIS norms and etc. with respect to quality. We have to enhance policy frameworks also. So by taking these steps, we can take advantage of the China Plus One framework. Okay. So next news is about self-defense clause in global law. So India and Pakistan has agreed to cease all firing. So they have signed a ceasefire agreement post this particular Operation Sindoor. So we have seen it in the news. Ceasefire was also signed, but the Indian government has told that Operation Sindoor will continue as long as Pakistan is supporting this particular state-sponsored terrorism. So if there is any problem that Pakistan poses on India, definitely Operation Sindoor will be continued. Okay, this is something which we have told. So the right to self-defense. So because of the Operation Sindoor, so there is an increase in discussion of the topic called as right to self-defense. So if you come to the right to self-defense clause, so under the United Nations Charter, generally United Nations Charter will prohibit the use of force under Article 2 Clause 4. Under Article 2 Clause 4 of the UN Charter, so we should not use the force against any countries. But under that particular UN Charter only, there is an exception under Article 51, which provides an exception which permits the use of the force in self-defense if an armed attack occurs against a member state. So, if there is any armed attack against the member states, for example, in the case of this particular Operation Sindoor, before that we have seen Pahalgam attack. So, this was an armed attack by the TRF, which is a state-sponsored terrorist group, okay, which is a proxy of Jaish-e-Mohammed. So this has attacked our 26 tourists, 26 civilians. Definitely it's an armed attack. So definitely we can use this exception clause under Article 51. So ICJ in the Nicaragua versus USA case, in one such a case in the past, so this is a judicial precedent, okay, this is a past case. In this particular past case, ICJ has told that it has interpreted that armed attack as a gravest form of the use of force. So this is a gravest form when we need to use the force. So this is an exception where we need to use the force. So this is told by ICJ only in the Nicaragua versus USA case. Right to self-defense is subjected to two important conditions. One is necessity, another one is proportionality. So there should be a proportional impact that should be there if you are taking any step, okay, if you are using self-defense. And the next one is it should be utmost important step, okay. If it is necessary only, we need to come up with this self-defense, okay. We need to utilize this Article 51 only if it is utmost necessary, okay. Under Article 51, we must notify to the United Nations Security Council before taking any action. So in India's case, May 7, 2025, we have done our missile strikes. This was described as a measured response to the Pahalgam massacre. So definitely this is according to Article 51 only, but we did not state it to UNSC. We did not explicitly inform the UNSC. However, out of the 15 countries of UNSC, we have informed 13 countries. Okay, we did not explicitly mention, but we have briefed it for 13 countries out of 15 countries. And there is another doctrine that you have to know. This is in the news. So this is known as unwilling or unable doctrine. So this is also an emerging principle in the international law, particularly after the post 9/11 attacks. Okay, so this particular unwilling or unable doctrine was in the news. Okay, mainly it was in the news after 9/11 attacks, and it is in the news after Operation Sindoor also. So it is something which allows a state to use self-defensive force against a non-state actors operating from another state's territory if the state is unwilling or unable to stop the threat. So non-state actor is nothing but, so it can be a terrorist groups, or it can be an organized syndicate, okay, organized crime syndicate, or any other informal group other than the state. So if they are attacking any state group, or if they are attacking any civilians of another country, definitely as part of unwilling or unable doctrine, a country can react if that particular parent country is unwilling to take an action, or if it is unable to stop the threat. So in the case of Pakistan, it was unwilling to stop this particular TRF, and it was unwilling to stop the particular threat. So because of that, as part of unwilling or unable doctrine, by utilizing this particular tactic or by utilizing this particular thing, we have attacked them. Okay, we have attacked only the military areas. Okay, so we have only attacked the terrorist organizations, not on the civilians. It was prominently invoked by USA in 2011 for killing Osama bin Laden in Pakistan, and in 2014 air strikes on ISIS in Syria. However, it was criticized by countries like Russia, China and Mexico because it was undermining state sovereignty. They are putting allegations that it will undermine the state sovereignty and the UN system. If you take the India's case, India's position is unclear, but it is an evolving case. At UNSC ARIA formula meeting in February 2021, India has listed 3 conditions where a self-defensive clause can be applied. So one is when the non-state actor has repeatedly attacked the states. For example, in the case of India, the non-state actors, that is the terrorist groups, have repeatedly attacked India in many cases in the past also. The host state is unwilling to neutralize the threat. So host state is nothing but Pakistan. It is unwilling. It is not showing any willingness to neutralize this particular threat. The host state actively supports or sponsors the non-state actors. So in case of Pakistan, it is supporting the non-state actors, or it is coming up with a state-sponsored terrorism. So all of these 3 conditions are met. That's the reason we have come up with the self-defense clause, or we have utilized the self-defense clause. Okay. So legal scholars are noting down this particular event as uncertain if these conditions are cumulative or independent. In response to Pahalgam attack, India has accused Pakistan for not taking any steps and labeled it as a safe haven for the terrorists, and we have suggested implicit reliance of unwilling or unable doctrine. So we have suggested, or we have highlighted this particular doctrine for the steps that we have taken. Okay, so this is something which was in the news that you have to know. So this is the test your take aspect. You can test your take of what we have learned till now. Okay, I hope you have understood till here. So let's continue the discussion with the article number 9. So where we'll be discussing about Group of Friends of Traditional Medicine. Okay, so what is it all about? Let's see that. So recently, why it is on news is, recently the 6th meeting of Group of Friends of Traditional meeting was hosted by Permanent Mission of India in the place of Geneva. Okay, so remember that. So Group of Friends of Traditional Medicine was hosted by India recently. This is the 6th meeting and the Permanent Mission of India in Geneva. So that's the reason we need to know what is this Group of Friends of Traditional Medicine. So Group of Friends of Traditional Medicine is a informal platform. So this was launched by India itself. So under the World Health Organization in May 2023. So this was actually launched, okay, in order to cooperate on the traditional medicine. So basically this is not a formal platform. This is an informal platform. Remember this point. Okay, so we have launched, okay, India has taken a lead in launching it under the WHO to promote the cooperation of different countries in the traditional medicine sector. So it was coordinated via the India's permanent mission, okay, in Geneva, so where the recent meeting was also held. So it hosts regular meetings to explore the integration of the countries in the field of traditional medicine. Okay, so it also supports global efforts like WHO traditional medicine strategy. So WHO has come up with a traditional medicine strategy for the years 2025 to 2034. So under this particular event also, this particular step that has taken by India will also help in boosting this strategy. Okay, so this initiative, this particular grouping which was led by India will foster the knowledge exchange between the countries in the field of traditional medicine, and also they can do the collaboration in the research part of the traditional medicine, and also they'll focus on policy development, capacity building in the sector, and scientific validation of the traditional practices in the traditional medicine sector. Okay, so it also builds momentum for the global events, such as if WHO wanted to come with any program or a global event with respect to traditional medicine, so this grouping will take a lead. Okay, so for example, in the World Health Assembly sessions, if there is anything related to traditional medicine, this grouping will take a lead. Okay, remember, what are the pointers that you have to remember? So this particular group of friends in traditional medicine, so this is a group which is an informal group. This was formed by taking a lead from an Indian side only under the WHO. This was formed to cooperate, okay, to maintain that cooperation between the countries in the areas of traditional medicine. So they'll also guide WHO, okay, in the WHO sessions also, or else if WHO is coming up with any summits related to the traditional medicine, they'll take a lead. And also they'll collaborate in research, capacity building in these areas, and also they'll coordinate with respect to the policy development related to the traditional medicines. Okay, remember these points. So in what are the India's key initiatives in traditional medicines then? So within the domestic sphere, that is in the domestic sphere of our country, so that is within India, we have taken few steps already to actually promote the traditional medicine. For example, the National Ayush Mission. So this particular Ayush Mission will promote the research and other particular things in the areas of Ayurveda, yoga, okay, naturopathy, Unani, Siddha and homeopathy. So through, okay, by devoting or by dedicating the facilities and education in this particular sector, so this Ayush mission will work. Okay, so we have come up with something called as National Ayush Mission. Remember that. So this is the domestic efforts that has taken by India. So what are the key efforts that include under this traditional medicine grouping? That is informal grouping. So they have established Ayush Arogya Mandirs. Okay, we have established Arogya Mandirs, which are also known as wellness centers for integrated care. And we have, within India, we have expanded the insurance coverages for the Ayush treatments. Okay, first one is we have come up with wellness centers which are known as Ayush Arogya Mandirs. Okay, so they were named as Arogya Mandirs, and we also extended the insurance coverage under the Ayush treatments. Okay, and we are promoting the collaborative research with DBT, DST, that is Department of Biotechnology, Science and Technology, ICMR, CSIR. So all of this will be coordinated. Okay, all of these organizations will be coordinated to work on the research of the traditional medicine. Okay, so and we are using artificial intelligence, genomics and bioinformatics to bolster the scientific credibility of the traditional medicines. Okay, and we are also strengthening the global outreach. So as part of it only, we have initiated this particular initiative of group of friends for traditional medicine, okay, which is also an informal grouping under WHO, where India has taken a lead. Okay, so and we are signing some bilateral agreements, trilateral agreements, regional agreements. We are hosting and we are taking a lead in the international events, and we are performing, like we are participating in the multilateral platforms where traditional medicine aspects are dealt. Okay, in this way India is performing well with respect to traditional medicine promotion. Okay, so that was about the news. You can solve the particular question based on the discussion that we have made after buying the PDF. Okay, so why UK is tightening immigration rules? How Indians will be affected? So this is the next article that we'll be seeing. So what happened is, in the month of May and in the month of April, so what did UK did is, UK has announced new plans for the with respect to the immigration rules. It has brought lot of changes in the immigration rules within the UK. Okay, so they just wanted to decrease the number of people moving to the country. So they wanted to decrease the migration from the outside. They want to decrease migration into their particular country. So for that, they have brought few changes in the immigration rules within their country. So what are the changes that they have brought and how it will affect India is something which we have to see. Okay, so first one is, they have raised the skilled worker visa threshold. So the requirement for the skilled worker visa will be raised from the senior secondary level back to the degree level. Okay, basically initially we had some senior secondary level qualification to get the skilled worker status, but it was back then. The stringent norms were imposed now. Okay, so this is the problem as of now we are facing. So basically one thing that you have to remember from this particular paragraph is, so they have rose the threshold, they have rose the limit to get the skilled worker visa. Okay, next one is ending the social care visas. So basically now UK will no longer issue the social care visas to the foreign workers. Basically what happened is, during COVID-19, that is during the pandemic, lot of social care visas were given to the outsiders because they were needing the social care workers, especially for taking care of the elderly people and for the children. So for that they have given visas to the workers who are working in the social care activities. Okay, but now as COVID-19 has ended, now they wanted to decrease this particular social care visas and they want to end them. Okay, and they want to reduce graduate visa duration also. So basically initially so graduates who want to graduate in the UK, I'm sorry, so they used to get the visa period for 2 years, but now it has decreased it to 18 months. That is, from 24 months to 18 months decrease was given. Okay, so there was a decrease in the timeline. So and 3 years for the PhD holders. Okay, and they have introduced a new norm, that is English language requirement for the dependents. So if any dependents are going along with the family or along with that particular person who want to do the job or who want to complete their graduation in that particular UK, so if they take the dependents, so dependents also need to get the, okay, they also need to know the English language. So this is the new rule that they have kept in the immigration rules. So dependents of the visa holders will now have to meet the English language proficiency requirements also. So this is another thing that they have come up with. And next one is, they have increased the settlement period. So the minimum qualifying period for the settlement, okay, so for example initially what happened is, if they stayed there for 5 years altogether, they used to get a permanent residency over there, but now the threshold has increased it to 10 years. Okay, in this way they have got some stringent rules and regulations under the immigration rules of the UK. So first one is, so they have raised the skilled worker visa threshold. Second one is, they have ended the social care visas and they have reduced graduate visa duration. Permanent residence settlement period also got increased, and English language requirement is okay needed now for the dependents who are going along with the visa holders. Okay, so why did UK took that particular decision to to bring the stringent measures in the immigration rules. This is because they are facing some increased migration and they are facing some pressure on their own services. For example, the rise in the social care visas after the COVID led to the large influx of the foreign care workers. So a lot of foreign care workers were influxing into the country, because of which lot of pressure was there on their resources. Okay, so that is the reason they want to bring the stringent norms under the immigration rules. For example, over 1,14,000 additional health and care workers visas were issued between 2021 to 2023. Mainly, who were that particular visa holders? So they were from South Asian countries and African nations. Okay, and most of them were from India also. Right. Next one is reducing the low skilled migration. So they wanted to reduce the low skilled migration also. So the government of UK is planning to reduce the low skilled migration. So basically they are concentrating only on the skilled workers. So that's the reason they have raised the visa requirements for the skilled job holders. Okay, and they want to promote domestic workforce development. So whoever the UK nationals that are there, so they wanted to promote the domestic workforce development rather than giving visas to the outsiders. So there is a push to invest in training and apprenticeships for the UK residents rather than giving visas for the outsiders. Okay, so in this way, because of all of these reasons, they have made or they have brought some stringent measures under the immigration rules. So who are the major beneficiaries of this particular UK's visa policy? So South Asian nationals, because a large number of work visas were issued to the workers from India, Pakistan and Bangladesh. So many Indian care workers received health and care visas between 2021 to 2023. So before, whenever the UK has easen up the visa policy things, okay, or whenever some policy like some visa policies of UK were made easier. So that particular time, at that particular period of time from 2021 per se to 2023, so this is the period when India was also beneficial. Indian workers and Indian skilled workers were very much beneficial because of the easing norms of the UK's visa policy. But now, as they are tightening the norms, definitely we are going to get affected in a negative way. And sub-Saharan African nations are also one who got benefit out of that visa eased norms. But now again, as the as there is a tightening of the norms that are there under the immigration rules, definitely they'll be getting affected, mainly Zimbabwe, Ghana and Nigeria. Okay, remember this. So how have Indian students and workers been affected by the recent changes? How are they going to get affected? First thing is because of the shorter post-study workforce. So initially they can stay for the 2 years for the, if they are going for the graduation. Now it has reduced to 18 months. Many now have less time to build careers in UK. So their career building activity or the career building period got decreased. So this is the first negative effect. And the new immigration rules are focusing upon skills. So skilled worker visas now require a degree level qualification. So excluding some mid-skilled jobs, all jobs will be requiring some degree level qualifications. And Indian engineers and healthcare workers face stringent and stricter eligibility criteria, so they may face these particular problems with respect to the skill requirements. And the next problem is with respect to English language rules for the dependents. So whoever the dependents that are going along with the visa holders, they need to know the English language. This will put some burden on the Indian families again who wanted to go to the UK along with the dependents. Next one is longer residency for settlement. So initially we used to we need to have that 5 years of settlement. Okay, after 5 years they used to get that settlement residency or permanent residency. But now the time has increased it to 10 years. So Indian must wait longer to settle permanently in the UK. This is another problem. And there is an increase in tuition fees also. So in almost many colleges and many universities in UK, so the tuition fees have increased. So almost 6% fee leeway on international student raises study cost on the Indian students. So these are all the effects, the negative effects that Indians will face with respect to the change in the immigration rules of UK. Okay, what should be the way forward then? Okay, what are the steps that we need to take? So we have to enhance the skill development. So we have to focus on the skill development, because skilled workers are getting some benefits out of the immigration rules. So that's why we need to enhance the skills, and we have to invest on the skill development of our people who are going to UK. Okay, so we have to invest significantly in vocational training and giving apprenticeships. Okay, and also to reduce dependency on the skilled like low skilled foreign labor. So if we increase the skills, definitely their livelihood will also be improved. Okay, their way of life will also get changed, definitely. So that's the reason we need to invest on the skill development, and we have to balance migration policy. So we have to implement some targeted immigration reforms that maintain the UK's competitiveness in attracting global talent while ensuring public service sustainability also. So we have to balance the migration policies. So by taking these steps, we can enhance the we can solve the problems basically with respect to the change in immigration rules. Okay, so now I wanted to introduce you people to a new framework. So before getting into the next topic, let me introduce you people with a new framework where you can use this particular framework directly in the answers. Okay, so this particular framework, I have named it as a geopolitical dimensions framework. So basically, if there is any questions on the geopolitics or a geopolitical related questions, so you have to think in different dimensions, right? So I have provided you a list of dimensions in which you have to think, okay, in which you have to align your thinking pattern. So basically, whenever any geopolitical question comes, you have to think of the geography and natural resources. You have to think about the political factors. You have to think about the social and cultural factors, science and technology, economic factors, environmental concerns, demographic patterns. Okay, history and cultural legacy, legal and regulatory frameworks, visa rules. So this is something which we have discussed. Okay, so they have tightened up these visa rules. So definitely, so this particular thing can come under the geopolitical issues. So whenever some geopolitical related question comes with respect to UK, you have to mention this visa. So the tightening up of the visa norms is something which you have to mention. And you have to think of security and strategic aspects, global institutions and diplomacy. So these are the different dimensions you have to think of. Okay, you have to make or align your thinking pattern. So under this particular dimensions and under this particular framework, whenever any geopolitical related question is asked. Okay. So how to apply this particular framework? So for example, so let's apply this particular framework with respect to geopolitics of migration. So visa policy is somewhat related to migration, right? So whenever someone is taking visa and they are going to other countries, it means they are migrating to other countries. So that's why I have picked up that particular framework of geopolitics of migration. I am trying to apply the geopolitical dimensions framework on geopolitics of migration. Okay, so I'm trying to apply that geopolitics framework on the topic called as geopolitics of migration. Okay, so let's apply. So if you take the geography and the natural resources, definitely sometimes what happens is what triggers the migration is climate change. For example, in the areas of West Bengal, Odisha and many places, because of the cyclones and other reasons, many women and many children will get migrated to the areas of Bangladesh and Myanmar also. Okay, so this is one particular thing that can trigger the migration. So sometimes desertification and sometimes sea level rise. All of these are somewhat related to climate change and disasters. So what we can say is disasters and increase in the climate change or a change in a climate will definitely impact the migration patterns. For example, Sahel region in the Africa. Okay, and if you take example of Bangladesh, many Bangladeshis will also migrate towards India because of the sea level rise, because of the floods, cyclones and many more reasons. And sometimes geo proximity influence will also influence the routes. For example, so Mediterranean for African migrants. So because of the Mediterranean link, they'll also migrate. So what I wanted to tell you is, so how geography is related to migration? Geography is related to migration because of the climate change and disasters. So whenever you think of the migration, you have to think of this particular reason also. And next, political factors can also be the reason. For example, let me take the example of our Myanmar only. Okay, so our neighboring country Myanmar. So because of some regime changes and coup that is happening in the Myanmar, and because of the internal tensions and conflicts, and because of the civil war in the Myanmar, so many people, because of these political factors, many people are migrating to our West Bengal and northeastern states like Mizoram, okay, Nagaland and many more. So authoritarian regimes, political instability and persecution will also trigger this particular migration patterns. Okay. Next one is social and cultural factors also will trigger. For example, xenophobia, racism. Okay, if people are facing some issues because of this xenophobia or cultural factors or because of the social tensions, definitely, so that will have an impact on migration. Let me tell you another example also. So in India, so patriarchy is very, very prevalent, not only in India, in the world also, in a global scenario also, patriarchy is something which is dominating. Okay, this particular ideology is something rooted in the mindsets of the people, right? So patriarchy will definitely trigger migration. Let me tell you how. So patriarchy will actually lead to the, okay, gendered based division of labor, right? So women need to work, women need to like depend on the men. Okay, this is the ideology of the patriarchal mindset, right? So women need to depend on the men for the money, right? So because of that, many men will go to work, okay, many men will do jobs, and many women will remain as a housewife. So because of this particular patriarchal mindsets, men need to work, so because of the better work opportunities, they'll migrate. So if you look at the patterns also, migration will be triggered by the gender also. So gender is related to a social and cultural factor. So that's why I have mentioned this particular point. Next one, science and technology. So advanced surveillance and biometric technology in border security, social media and mobile tech will also help migrants plan the routes and communicate also. So let me tell you another relation of science and technology. So basically people want to migrate to high tech sectors or high tech areas. For example, many people will travel from their homeland to the areas like big cities like Mumbai, Bangalore and Hyderabad, even to the Delhi, because the science and technology is very prevalent over there. So science and technology is also related to migration. And next one is economic factors. So sometimes unemployment and underdevelopment of their home countries will also push the people to migrate to other countries or other areas. Okay, so sometimes some pull factors are also there because of the demand of cheap labor, skilled labors. So in many developed economies, so because of this also, these pull factors will also pull the migrants towards that particular country. Next, environmental concerns. So I have already told you about climate change, disasters. This will lead to migration. And demographic factors will also be there. So youth bulge in South Asia and Africa. For example, in India itself, lot of youth are there, but employment opportunities are not available. So because of this jobless growth, many people will tend to migrate to other countries for better livelihood opportunities. Okay, and historical and cultural legacy will also be there. So because of some colonial era connections, this will influence the migration patterns. For example, recently our prime minister has visited a place named Trinidad and Tobago. Okay, Trinidad, I'm sorry for the pronunciation again, and Tobago, which is a Caribbean nation. So he has visited this particular country, and we had some colonial connections with that particular country, and many Indian people are migrated to that particular country because of the colonial era connections. Okay, so in this way also, because of some colonial era connections and because of the similar cultural patterns also, people will migrate to other country. Okay, so sometimes legal and regulatory frameworks will also relate to migration. So for example, international laws like 1951 Refugee Convention and Global Compact on Migration, all will also act as a trigger points of the migration. And the important point, the visa rules. So just now we have seen the UK tightening up their immigration rules. Because of this, migration from India towards the UK might decrease. But however, from 2021 to 2023, we have seen increase in migrants from India towards the UK. So for the purpose of graduation, sometimes for the job purpose, and sometimes as a dependence also. Right. Next, security and strategic aspects will also be there. So sometimes migration is also linked to terrorism, border security concerns. So I have already told you about the example of Myanmar, right? So because of some civil war and civil war tensions, and because of some border security challenges in the area of Myanmar, so people are acting as refugees. So they are coming towards the India. And global institutions and diplomacy. So for example, we have UNHCR, IOM, ILO. So they will also play a major role in managing the migration flows. Okay, so they'll be discussing on the human rights of that particular migrants and immigrants. Okay, so they'll force the countries to give support to the migrants who are migrated to that particular country. So in this way, geopolitics, whenever you're thinking of geopolitics, you have to think in this particular dimensions, like political dimensions, economic dimensions, diplomacy or diplomatic dimension, geographical dimensions, historical dimensions, and also you have to think about the visa rules, legal policies and frameworks that we have. Okay, you have to think in all of this particular pattern. Okay, you have to align your thinking in that particular framework pattern so that you can derive the points. Okay, so here I have provided you a question, so you can pause the video and try it out by applying our geopolitical framework. Okay, so this is the test your take questions. Now let's go to another article. So article number 11. So why Northeast Kolkata link via Myanmar and not Bangladesh? So recently what happened is the Ministry of Road Transport and Highways has approved a 166.8 kilometer 4-lane highway from Shillong to Silchar. Let me show you the map and make you understand. So this will later be extended to Zorinpuri in Mizoram and will connect to Kaladan multimodal transit project. So let me show you the image of this particular thing so that you can understand it in more clear way. So this is that particular image. Let me show you so that you will understand it in more detailed way. Okay, let me zoom in. Yeah. So this is the 4-lane highway that we have tried to connect from Silchar. So Silchar is in Assam to Shillong. Shillong is in Meghalaya. So this will be the 4-lane highway. Okay, so let me show you and draw it in the blue color. So this is the highway. Here we are coming up with a 4-lane highway, and this is as part of the Kaladan multimodal project. As the name suggests, Kaladan multimodal project is something which will act as a link between the Kolkata, okay, that is Kolkata from the Indian side. So this is Kolkata from the Indian side to the Sitwe. So Sitwe is in Myanmar. Okay, from Sitwe we'll try to connect with the northeastern part from Paletwa, Kaletwa, Zorinpui and Longtlai. Okay, so from Longtlai we'll straightly go to Mizoram's Aizawl, and then Mizoram will be connected to Silchar. So Silchar is in Meghalaya. Assam. From Assam will be connected to Shillong. Okay, so here Shillong will be connected. So first of all, why we are calling it as a multimodal project? It is because from Kolkata till Sitwe, it will be through a sea link. Okay. Then from Sitwe to Paletwa, it will be through river. From Paletwa to Aizawl and all, it will be a road connectivity. And from Aizawl, we are further connecting to the areas of Shillong to Meghalaya. Again, through a road connectivity, that to a 4-lane. 4-lane highway is coming up in this particular area from Silchar to Shillong. So this is something which you have to remember. So if you look at this particular thing, we are nowhere touching Bangladesh. Okay, we are nowhere touching Bangladesh. We are directly going from Calcutta, that is from West Bengal to Myanmar. Through Myanmar, we are going to Northeast India. So I'll tell you why I am telling you all of this, like why I am telling you that we are not touching Bangladesh. So let me tell you the reason. So before telling you all the reason why I have mentioned about Bangladesh, let me tell you this Kaladan multimodal transit project. So this is a multimodal project that I have already told you, from Bengal to Sitwe of Myanmar. Through Sitwe we'll go to Paletwa of Mizoram, then to Aizawl to again this 4-lane highway. Okay, so this will act as an alternative to the vulnerable Siliguri corridor. So Siliguri corridor is a narrow one, okay, so which is of very narrow zone. So this is a narrow zone which will connect northeastern part of India to the rest of India. So this is a very vulnerable zone. So that's the reason we are trying to find the alternative routes also. So which is currently the only land route connecting the northeastern part of India with the rest of India. For example, from Calcutta through Mizoram route through Myanmar is a part of the Kaladan multimodal project. So under the Kaladan multimodal project, we are going from Calcutta to Myanmar, Myanmar to Mizoram and to the rest of Northeast. Okay, so we are trying to find an alternative route through this particular multimodal transit project. Okay, so this reduces the transportation distance by 1000 kilometers and time by almost 3 to 4 days. Okay, and this particular multimodal project will facilitate the faster movements of the goods, and also it will facilitate the faster movements of the people, and it will boost the trade, and it will boost the investment in the Northeast India, because a proper connectivity is built from the India to the northeastern part of India. So people will try to invest also, okay, because of this particular safer route. So why has India-Bangladesh ties worsened? So let me tell you the point now. So recently what happened is Sheikh Hasina government has it has collapsed in Bangladesh. So pro India, it was pro Indian government, the Sheikh Hasina government. So but it was ousted, and it was ousted in the August 2024 because of various reasons and reservation concerns and all. So that is of other story. So because Bangladesh is facing this political turmoil, so Awami League was banned by interim government. So interim government came into the throne under the Muhammad Yunus. Okay, so but under the Muhammad Yunus, the India and Bangladesh ties worsened. Okay, so we are seeing a strained relation with this particular country. So India is concerned about the democratic erosion because Muhammad Yunus is not an elected leader. Okay, so he's an interim advisor. So basically he is ruling without conducting any election. So that is a concern that India is also showing. So we are seeing some strained diplomatic exchanges. So recently Yunus called Northeast India as a landlocked country, and he has claimed that Bangladesh is the only guardian of the ocean. So in order to counter this particular statement, so we are coming up with the alternative rule, and we have made sure that this Kaladan multimodal project has no link with the Bangladesh. Okay, so Kaladan multimodal project is something which is earlier developed only, but as part of this particular statement, we are trying to counter, and we are trying to say, and our diplomats also made sure that they have told and they have countered this particular argument given by Jonas that so Bangladesh is something which is not required for India. We can directly connect to northeastern part of India through other routes. Okay, for example, the Kaladan multimodal project. Okay, so remarks also made during visit to China raised concerns of Bangladesh tilting towards China. So this particular words and remarks were made by Muhammad Yunus when he has visited China. So we are seeing basically as of now we are seeing a good relation of Bangladesh with China. So which is also a concern for India again. Okay. So in recent times we are seeing the trilateral nexus. What is this trilateral nexus? This trilateral nexus of Pakistan, China and Bangladesh. So which is a major concern to India. So this may pose some security challenges also to India. Okay. So trade restrictions and economic tensions. India restricted Bangladeshi exports. In response to it, we have restricted exports to Northeast in response to this diplomatic and strategic concerns and the remarks that were made by Muhammad Yunus. Okay. So why has Kaladan project been delayed? In recent times, we have seen certain challenges with respect to the development of Kaladan project because of some reasons. One reason is a security concern. So as you know, it is connecting from Calcutta. We need a Myanmar connection, but in Myanmar, a military coup is happening. Civil war has been happening in Myanmar. So because of this civil unrest in Myanmar, and mainly especially in the Rakhine state of Myanmar, so we are seeing the delays. This is the first reason. And the next one is incomplete infrastructure. So from the Paletwa to Zorinpuri that I have showed you in the map, so this particular road stretch is under the construction. That is another problem. And another reason is the Kaladan multi-model project is facing risk because of the difficult terrain and because of the poor contractor coordination. And sometimes local subcontracting issues are also there with respect to this particular project. And IRCON was awarded contract in 2022, but progress, it has shown a very slow progress due to the logistical support, okay, because of the less logistical support. How does this Shillong-Silchar-Zorinpuri highway enhance Kaladan connectivity then? So whatever this 4-lane highway that you are coming up with, this can become a strategic redundancy. So this will offer an alternative to the Siliguri corridor, and almost 22,864 crore Shillong-Silchar highway was approved recently as a response to this particular remark that was made by Muhammad Yunus by stating our Indian northeastern part as a landlocked country. He had made a remark. In response to it, we have invested in this particular highway, and we are integrating the multimodal link. So this will connect directly to Kaladan multimodal project. So this Silchar will be connected to Kaladan multimodal project. So that will be connected directly to Aizawl of Mizoram. And economic development, definitely this highway, the 4-lane highway will help in boosting the trade, tourism and economic connectivity. And this will reduce the transit time also. So the travel time between Shillong and Silchar will cut down from 8.5 hours to 5 hours only. And what should be the way forward? So what we can do is we have to strengthen the security coordination with Myanmar, and we have to speak with all the stakeholders, and we have to make sure that the coordination takes place in a proper way, and we have to complete the pending Kaladan agreements. Okay, so that we can accelerate this particular infrastructure and we can counter the China's claims and the Bangladeshi claims. And what are the components of regional connectivity? So again, I'm introducing you here to other framework. Okay, we have just now learned about the geopolitical framework. Now I'll make you learn about another framework which is called as regional connectivity framework. Regional connectivity framework. So if any question in your mains exam is focusing on this particular theme, that is regional connectivity, in which all dimensions, in which all dimensions you have to think to generate the points. So first dimension should be maritime connectivity. So it can be road connectivity, it can be air connectivity, it can be multimodal connectivity like Kaladan multimodal project, and it can be energy connectivity, it can be economic connectivity. So as part of economic, it can be a market connectivity also. It can be cultural connectivity in this way. So these are all the dimensions that you have to think of while generating points with respect to the regional connectivity. And it can be a digital connectivity also, it can be security and strategy connectivity, and institutional connectivity also. So, and what is the importance of regional connectivity? Basically, regional connectivity with the countries will help in boosting the economic growth, and it will help in food security, strategic leverage will be there, people to contact will be there, logistical cost will reduce if we are coming up with a joint projects, joint infrastructure projects, and it will help in maintaining peace regionally, without any tensions and without any security implications. So let us apply, let's apply that particular framework that we have just now learned, that is regional connectivity framework, to this particular question. So India's proximity to the Gulf region is an asset, but its relation with the Gulf are dominated by economic consideration, LSD. So what we can think of, so we can apply this regional connectivity framework. So where you need to think of the points related to maritime and air links with the Gulf. Energy connectivity, for example, Gulf region is famous for oil and gas import. You have to think of those points. And cultural and diaspora linkages is another thing. Cultural linkages is something which you have to think of. And institutional cooperation, strategic linkages and digital cooperation. So these are the different points that we have drawn from that particular regional connectivity framework, right? From the regional connectivity framework only we have derived all these points. So you have to think of one or two examples from each point while writing the answer. That will be enough. For example, under the digital cooperation, so you can mention about our UPI, our UPI introduction in UAE, India-UAE RuPay agreement. For strategic linkages, you can think of how both the countries, like both the groupings, are coordinating with respect to against the anti-piracy. And you can, as part of institutional framework, you have to write about FTA talks, I2U2, I2U2, and you have to think about some cultural and diaspora linkages, energy connectivity mainly with regards to oil dependency, gas dependency by India. So you have to think of in all of these angles. So this is test your take component. You can try attempting this particular question once you buy the PDF. So let's look at another article, that is with regards to ongoing oil price tensions.